Very often we are eager for the next season to appear, dreaming, looking ahead, and that's good. There is part of us that needs to do that, but it's also important to not forget the current season we're in, even as much as we might be anticipating the next season. And often in life, you will find that people are in the same circle of life again and again and again. And very often it is because they're not learning the lessons that they're supposed to learn in the season that they're in. And thereby they prolong the season, and some never come out of the season. Often you will not graduate your current season until you have learned to successfully navigate the current season you're in. Welcome to the Safari Mission Podcast. I'm Reverend Vidar Ligard.
And I am Reverend Catherine Ligard.
And we want to share with you the Word of God to bring to light areas that we have walked through in our own lives.
Let's get right to the Word.
Life is a series of seasons. Everybody goes through various seasons in life. Moses, for example, the first 40 years of his life, he was with Pharaoh. The next 40 years, he was at the backside of the desert, building his family, helping his father-in-law. And in the last 40 years of his life, he was leading the nation of Israel out from Egypt and into the Promised Land. Us as well, we have seasons of life. You may have early childhood formative years. You might be in a season right now where you have kids at home. David is another example. He went through seasons in life. In his early life, he was serving his father. He was a shepherd boy. Later on in his life, he was serving the king. Towards the end of his life, he was the king himself. Different seasons. Very often we are eager for the next season to appear, dreaming, looking ahead. And that's good. There is part of us that needs to do that. But it's also important to not forget the current season we're in, even as much as we might be anticipating the next season. Very often how we finish the current season that we're in, it will provide the foundation for how we live life in the next season. And so I would encourage you to finish the current season with excellence, because there are lessons in this current season that you're going to need to conquer and understand in order to successfully navigate the next season of your life. As a simple example of this, some have kids at home, and I've heard and seen parents say, I can't wait until my kids are gone. I can't wait until my kids leave the home. But very often, how you serve with excellence in your current responsibilities, that is sowing and reaping, and you're going to reap the results of it later on in life. I know all too many families where their kids may be adults now and how they treat their parents is maybe not the best. But then sometimes you look back and go, they are actually reaping what they sowed when those kids were still at home with them. This is one reason why serving the current season is so important. I think about David. David served his dad. He was a shepherd boy. That was a menial job. It was an entry-level job. It was one that wasn't very highly esteemed. Yet he served with excellence. And when he was going to see Goliath, to see his brothers, and encountered Goliath, he said, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine?" It's very interesting that the very first thing that David sees is an uncircumcised Philistine. Everybody else is seeing the weight of the armor and the size of it and so forth and so on. And it becomes very evident as we read the story of David that when he was a shepherd, he spent his time in those fields worshiping the Lord, thinking about the matters of the covenant. Because when you say, who is this uncircumcised Philistine? In the Jewish mindset, uncircumcised means without covenant. He immediately recognized Goliath, the giant, as not having a covenant, knowing that he himself did have a covenant. Everybody else is focused on the external dangers of Goliath. But David knows his God. You don't have to worship when you're shepherding sheep. You can just focus on your job and do what you're supposed to do shepherding those sheep. But David, he used his time wisely, and he went above and beyond the call of duty, and spending his time thinking about the matters of the covenant, meditating on the law, if you want to call it that. And he worshiped the Lord his God, so that when he came to Goliath, and even the king is afraid of Goliath, but David says this, "Your servant has struck down both lions and bears, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be like one of them, for he has defied the armies of the living God." David took lions and bears when he was shepherding sheep. The expectation as a shepherd boy is that you would alert the village if there is a lion or a bear coming. Or maybe at best you would use your sling and try to scare away the lion. But David went far beyond that. He took it upon himself to take care of the lion, to take care of that bear. Far beyond. If David wouldn't have done that, he would not have been in a position to take Goliath. When the whole nation is afraid of this one enemy, David is not afraid. But the reason he wasn't afraid is because he had served in his season as a shepherd. He served with utmost excellence, so that when he came into the next season, he was prepared to meet the challenges of that season because he had previously served with excellence. As we keep on studying about David, he now goes into the next season because the king says, "This guy, I want him in my service." And so he becomes a worship leader, and he helps to drive away evil spirits from the king because he knows how to worship. And he also becomes a leader of sections of the army. And so he serves with excellence. But because the king is an insecure king, he becomes afraid of David, and he starts to hunt David, and David is chased from place to place by the king. Completely unfair. Here in 1 Samuel chapter 22, it says, David departed from there and escaped to the cave of Adullam. He no longer even has a place to lay his head. He's just hiding in a cave. That's hardship. When his brothers in his father's house heard of it, they went down there to him. His whole family was in hardship. And the Bible says, everyone who was in distress and everyone who was in debt and everyone who was bitter in soul gathered to him. And he became captain over them. And there were with him about 400 men. I don't know who wants to be a giant slayer, having success in all these raids, and the next season of your life, it starts with 400 of the losers of society coming to you, and you become the leader of those 400 leaders. That's an opportunity to be in despair. It's an opportunity to murmur. It's an opportunity to complain. God, I didn't deserve this. And surely David didn't deserve it. But he took what was at his disposal. He took the cards he had been dealt. He took the situation he was in, and he did the best with it. And we read towards the end of his life, those that came to David at the cave of Adullam, they actually became his mighty men when David was king. They were the ones that would go out and conquer the land. They were the ones who would go out and secure the kingdom. And when they raised the offering for the temple there at the end of David's life, with all the gold that they raised, it came to about $2.5 billion. And his mighty men with the $1.5 billion. And of course, the value of gold changes all the time, but billions of dollars came from these losers in society. That means David served with excellence in the season that he was in. He did something with the cards he was dealt. Instead of murmuring and complaining, he took it with utmost seriousness, and he learned the lessons that he needed in that season. And if David hadn't served with excellence, even when he was running from the king, he never would have had those mighty men to be surrounded by, to be able to lead Israel into freedom when he was the king. There is another story in 1 Samuel chapter 24, when David is fleeing from cave to cave from the king. One day the king comes into the very cave where David and his men are hiding. And he goes there to go to the bathroom, or he goes to relieve himself. And David and his men were sitting in the innermost parts of the cave. And the men of David said to him, "Look, here is the day which the Lord has said to you, Behold, I will give your enemy into your hand, and you shall do to him as it shall seem good to you." So David rose and stealthily cut off a corner of Saul's robe. And afterward, David's heart struck him, because he had cut off a corner of Saul's robe. And he said to his men, "The Lord forbid that I should do this thing to my Lord, the Lord's anointed, to put up my hand against him, seeing he is the Lord's anointed." David served with integrity, even when he was not fairly treated. And I know that has a lot to do with the success that David had when he was king. The Bible talks about, even in the New Testament, talking about David, he was a man after God's own heart. And this right here has something to do with it. He didn't use the opportunity for power to take that power for his own benefit. But even though at this point he has power, he can take over the kingdom right here, but he doesn't do it his own way. He waits for the Lord's timing before he becomes the king. These are lessons that we need to learn. And often in life, you will find that people are in the same circle of life again and again and again. And very often it is because they're not learning the lessons that they're supposed to learn in the season that they're in. And thereby they prolong the season. And some never come out of the season. Often you will not graduate your current season until you have learned to successfully navigate the current season you're in. And so instead of always being so eager for the next season, yes, there might be a next season coming. There might be things that God has even showed you. But you cannot not take your current responsibilities seriously and try to run right into the next season. I've seen others that are called to ministry, and they might have on their heart to start their own ministry. But once they get just a little bit of ministry experience, they might be serving under another ministry currently. Then they run, then they dash, then they go start their own ministry, and they start prematurely. And the quality of their ministry never ever becomes what God has intended for them, because they didn't serve well in the season when they were in that season of serving. They never completed the assignment that God had for them in that season. And therefore, they have short-circuited the effectiveness of the season that they're in when they do start their ministry. So I would encourage you, look at your current season, be thankful for what you have, take it seriously, serve God with all diligence, and make sure you excel. It might be a place of work that is not the optimal, but excel at that place of work and do the best that you possibly can in this current season. And when you do, and when the time is right, you will find that God is well able to promote you to the next season. And now you will have stories and examples in your life. You can be a mentor to other people who are then serving in the season that you have come out of. So take your current place seriously, and you will find that as you sow into your current season, you will very often reap a good harvest coming into your next season. God bless you.
Thank you for tuning into the Safari Mission podcast. We hope you've been blessed today. To learn more about us, visit safarimission.org. You can also follow along with our ministry and work in East Africa on Facebook, Instagram, X, which is Twitter, and YouTube at Safari Mission. To purchase any books written by Reverend Vidar, visit safarimission.org. If you're interested in joining Rhema Bible Training College Kenya, visit rhemakenya.org or call 07-14-915-799. We'll be back next week for more teaching. Until then, God bless you.